Hi, my name is Tony, and I'm a training manager at the CAPA. In this short demo, I'll show you how the CAPA AI supports auditors, QA, and clinical operation managers during the ICH E6 R3 transition. The key difference from a generic chatbot is that this is a trained and validated assistant, not a blank model. ChatGPT is like a bright high school student. It can talk about anything, but it has not been trained on your processes or findings. The CAPA AI is more like an experienced GCP specialist. It has been trained on our internal documentation, real audit findings, and the relevant regulations and guidelines. So it follows the methodology used in the industry. Because of this, you don't need to engineer a clever prompt every time. The logic for how to write a GCP observation is already built in. The structure is stable, validated, and aligned with our methodology, so you get a consistent output every time. In this demo, we'll walk through 3 practical scenarios: turning an auditor's raw notes into a structured GCP finding, generating a CAPA plan that goes beyond coordinator oversight, and creating a case study on critical to quality factors and quality tolerance limits for a modern clinical trial design. Let's start with a very common pain point: e-consent and poor documentation of the consent process. Here I have an example of raw audit notes about an e-consent issue. The auditor has identified 2 main concerns. There is no source documentation of how the consent discussion happened, and the subject was randomized and exposed to trial procedures weeks before the legal representative actually signed the e-consent. In a generic chatbot, at this point, you would need to think about the right prompt, explain what good looks like, and hope that the model follows your instruction. In the CARP AI, you don't need that. The prompt is effectively embedded in this assistant. It already knows that it should draft a GCP observation using our standard structure and regulatory references. We just need to choose Write Observation. You can see that the AI converts our messy notes into a complete observation without me typing any special prompt. It gives a clear finding ID, title, and classification as critical. It describes the lapse in chronology, including the randomization date and the late e-consent signature. It highlights the lack of documentation in the EMR about the consent discussion, and it anchors the observation in the relevant ICH E6 R3 and E6 R2 sections, plus the EMA guideline on computerized systems. The reason the result looks so consistent is that the assistant has been trained on our methodology and validated on real audit examples. The structure will be the same for every user and every similar case. You don't have to reinvent wording or formatting or worry that the model changes its mind like a generic chatbot might do. In other words, you don't need to draft findings or write CAPA text from scratch anymore. The system is specialized, trained on regulations and on actual findings, and we continuously add new internal prompts and scenarios to address real auditor and QA pain points.